Hey friends, welcome back to another PineScript coding lesson. My name's Matthew from Zen and the Art of Trading, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use the ATR indicator in your scripts. So in the previous lesson I showed you how to use the RSI indicator to create overbought and oversold signals. In this lesson I'm going to show you how to use the ATR indicator to create a trailing stop. So we're just going to draw onto the chart our trailing long position stop and a short position stop. I'm going to do it this way because it's just a lot more simple to demonstrate the logistics behind using this indicator in your scripts. But in future lessons, I'll come back to this lesson 6 script, this RSI script, and I'll show you how to plot your stop loss and target placement. So say you wanted to go long here after the RSI went oversold and we got a bullish engulfing candle. So you want to have a 1 ATR stop loss and a 1 ATR target. Then you can actually plot these values directly to your chart using PineScript. But today's lesson, we're not going to cover that. I'm just going to keep it simple. We're going to delete this script. We're going to start a new blank script. And I'm going to call it lesson, you guessed it, 7. Keeping it really simple for you guys here. All right, so the first thing we need to do is set our overlay to true. Now overlay to true, if you set this to false, then if I save this and add it to my chart, it'll draw as an oscillator box. So now we're plotting the price. We have a line chart that is separate to our main chart. So that's useful when you're creating oscillator indicators, basically like the RSI or stochastics when you're working with those styles of indicators. But today's script, we're going to be drawing directly to the chart so that I can visually represent the information I'm going to show you. So if I click save there, delete this script and add this back to my chart, we now have the closing price plotted directly to the chart. So let's get straight into this one. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get some inputs from the user because it's always useful to be able to adjust these values on the fly. The first thing we're going to want to get is the ATR length. By default, this is usually a 14 period ATR, so we'll leave that as the default setting, but it's also great if you're creating scripts, especially to release to the public. It's always considered good etiquette to include as many options as you can for customizing the scripts. So I'm going to get you guys into that habit early on. And so we're going to call this one ATR length, and we're going to have a type of input.integer. It's going to be a whole number. We're going to have a default value of 14 and a min value of 1, might as well. This isn't necessary, but the ATR length can't be calculated beyond a 0 or negative value, so might as well get into a good habit of using this min-val function as well, or feature. The second input we're going to use is a Boolean, and we're going to call this one use structure. So I'll explain what this does later. First of all, let's just code it in. So we're going to say use structure. I like to put question marks on the end of my Boolean inputs, just out of habit. You don't have to do that. The default value is going to be true in this case. This is going to be used for detecting swing lows and swing highs to trail our stop loss. The alternative method is to just have a 1 ATR or whatever multiplier you want of the ATR from the closing price. So that'll make more sense later. I'll explain that later on. So we're going to have 2 more inputs. The next one is lookback. This is for the structure lookback. So title is how far to look back for high lows. And we're going to make this a integer as well because it's going to be a whole number. And we're going to set a default value of 7. So we're going to look back 7 bars for swing high and swing lows. The min val is going to be 1 as well on this input. And then we're going to create one more variable called the ATR stop multiplier. And I'll also explain what this does later. This will all make more sense later. I just like to get these inputs out of the way early. So we're going to say ATR times question mark. And this one is going to be an input.float. It's going to be a floating point variable. If I just quickly add the ATR indicator onto my chart, you'll see why that is. See, if I hover my candle, my cursor, mouse cursor over any of these bars, it'll show you down here in the left hand corner of this indicator, this oscillator box. It'll show the ATR value, and that's obviously a floating point number. It's not a whole number. It's got a decimal point. 0.00016 is 1.6 pips. I'm on the 1 minute chart here. If you're wondering why the ATR is so low, I just figured that the 1 minute chart would be the best time frame to demonstrate this technique on. But this script will obviously work on all time frames. So for this one, we're going to have a default value of 1.0. So we're going to have a default value of a 1 ATR stop multiplier. So whatever the ATR indicator is giving us, that will be our stop loss. So say above this swing high, we'll have a 1 ATR stop above this swing high. We don't need to set a minimum value for this, but might as well while we're here. And I'll set it to 0.1. If you're going lower than a 0.1 ATR multiplier, then you might as well not use this at all. So that's all of our inputs we're going to be using today. So now the next step is to calculate the data that we're going to be plotting to the chart. So we'll call this comment calculate data, just for our own reference. And the first thing we need to do is get the current ATR value. So we're going to call this variable ATR. Let's keep it simple. I like my scripts to be as simple as possible. We'll call it ATR, and we'll use the ATR function to get the current ATR value with our specified ATR length. So this by default is 14. That's what this C14 RMA is giving us a default ATR reading, and so will this line of code here. So these values will be identical, and I'll show you that right now. Actually, if we click save, and we look up here at the top left of the chart, you can see that those numbers are identical. So we're plotting a 0.24 now, pip ATR. It's the same on both indicators. So that's good. Let's move on to now calculate our stop losses. So our long trailing stop is going to be plotted below price, and that's for long positions. So if we were to have gone long here, then it will plot where our trailing stop should be, which will be 1 ATR below the most recent swing low. So let's type that in. Long stop is set to, and then this is going to get a little bit complicated here, but it's not that crazy. It's just going to be a bit confusing to read. So I'll explain it as I go, but we're going to use the conditional operator again. And this just saves space in our code. We can put all of this if-then statement into one line of code. So we're going to say use structure, question mark. If we're using structure, if we've ticked yes on this use structure input, then we want to calculate the stop loss based on the lowest low over our look back period. Otherwise, if we're not using structure, then we just want to use the closing price. So this line of code here now does two things. If we have this ticked as true, use structure is true, then we're going to search back 7 candles. That's the default value of our look back variable. We're going to look back 7 bars, and we're going to find the lowest low in those 7 bars. So in this case, that would be this low in here. And then we will calculate the stop loss as 1 ATR below this swing low. So the way we do that is we're going to minus, because our stop loss is below price, we're going to minus this lowest low or this closing price by the ATR value, which is here. But we're not just going to do that, because otherwise we can only use a standard 1 ATR trailing stop. What if your user wants to have a 2 ATR or 3 ATR or half ATR trailing stop? Well, the way that you achieve that is by timesing this value, this calculation, by our ATR stop multiplier. So if I type that in there, we now have our trailing long stop. So if I just quickly, I'll just demonstrate what this looks like. So we'll type in plot our long stop. The color is going to be color.green. We're going to use a little bit of style here. We're going to say style equals plot.style underscore line break. Line BR is short for line break. And then we're going to call it, we're going to title it long trailing stop. we're going to set the transparency to 0. We don't want any transparency on this. If I hit save here, you can see we are now plotting our trailing stop, and it's plotting 1 ATR below the lowest candle or the lowest low of the past 7 candles. So say you wanted to use a standard trend following technique and you wanted to trail your stop loss below the low of the pullback preceding the breakout, the most recent breakout. So in this case, it would look like this. We have a swing high here, a couple of candles pull back, then we break and close above the swing high on this candle here. If you were to hold your mouse cursor over this candle, look back 7 bars, the ATR indicator over this candle here, this trailing stop, will be plotting the lowest low below these 7 bars. So on this 1 minute chart, you might want to make the lookback period a little bit shorter than 7 bars, because you can see here that would put you on this bar here, which is lower than the swing low of the pullback. But let's just say we hover our mouse over this candle here. This will give us the trailing stop value. So say you went long down here on this bullish engulfing candle, and you had a 1 ATR stop below this entry, which would put you around here somewhere. And say that when this breakout happened, you wanted to trail your stop loss up a little bit. You would move your stop loss. You'd hover your mouse over here, look for the value, which up in the top left here is 0.60388. So you would bring your stop loss up to this green line here. And so that's how this indicator would work in practical terms. But that's not important for the demonstration. So let's just continue onwards now, and we'll draw the short trailing stop. So the short stop is going to be set to use structure, question mark. Are we using structure? If we are, we want to use the highest high over the lookback period as our reference price. Otherwise, we just want to use the close. And because this is a trailing stop that is above price action, we want to add to this value. So we're going to add the current ATR times our ATR stop multiplier. So by default, this is set to 1. So this is just 1 ATR. But as you can see, if you want to change that to say 2 ATR, that will widen your stop loss, or a 0.5 ATR, which is why we set this to a float, not a whole number. We can set it even tighter. It's up to you. That's a matter of preference. So now we've got that, we can now plot. I'm just going to copy this line of code. I'm going to plot our short stop, and the short stop is going to be color.red. Everything else can stay the same. We'll change this to say short trailing stop. Click save, and it will now plot our short trailing stop above price. So if you were to have gone short up here on this little double top up here, maybe you had a 1 ATR stop above the high. Then as price went into your favor, you would just simply, every time we had a break and close below a swing low, so we had a break and close below this swing low here, you'd hover your mouse over that candle, and then whatever value you get up here is where you would put your stop loss. And so that's a practical way of using this particular indicator, this script. And so I'll do one last thing before we finish this lesson, and that's we're going to keep plotting this ATR indicator, but we don't want to actually plot the value. If I scroll this right down, you'll see that it's actually plotting our ATR to the chart. We don't want that because it's going to, on some instruments, it may draw over price action. We don't want that. So what we can do is use the transparency function. So what we'll do here is I'll set the color. You can set the color to whatever you want. I'll leave it as blue in this case. I will also title it so that our users of our script can adjust this color and transparency as they wish. Then we'll set the transparency in this case to 100. We want it 100% transparent. Here we have 0% transparent because we want it to be drawn to the chart clearly. Here we don't want it drawn at all. If I type that in, hit save, and now if I scroll right down, you'll see that it's not plotting to the chart anymore. And so that's the end of this demonstration. We now have a trailing stop 1 ATR indicator. So you can see if I hover my mouse on any of these candles, the blue line up here that's plotting to the top left is the same as the actual ATR indicator in the bottom left down there. So we can now remove this, and we now have our trailing stop indicator. And if we come up to the settings, first of all, you can adjust our values here. See that we've titled our plot, our drawings, so that we can actually change the color of these. So if you wanted a blue trailing stop and an orange, a blue long trailing stop and an orange short trailing stop, you can change that in here. And of course, if you wanted to adjust the ATR multiplier, you can come up here and have a 1.5 ATR multiplier. That'll widen your stop loss. Or if you want to change the look back period of the ATR length, you can change that in here to say calculate the ATR based on the past 7 candles instead of the past 14. Or you can adjust this. So you might want to make this even less of a look back. So maybe 3 candle look back. And now it will detect the highest high and highest low of the past 3 bars to draw our trailing stop above or below. And there we have it. I hope that all made sense. If not, feel free to leave any questions in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And the reason why I'm making this lesson as lesson 7 is because the future scripts that I go into are going to use the ATR indicator probably quite a lot. So it's important we get this out of the way early. And this is the simplest method I can think of to demonstrate how to actually use the ATR indicator on your charts. So that brings me to the end of this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave any feedback in the comments section, any suggestions of topics you'd like me to cover, anything I missed or didn't make clear enough. Shoot me a question. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from these lessons, and it's really encouraging. I'm really glad that you guys are finding value out of these lessons, and I'm glad I'm helping you guys advance your own trading career. This stuff has really dramatically improved my own trading, and I'm just super grateful to have these tools at my disposal, and I'm really excited to pass them on to you. As always, if you have any questions, head over to zenandtheartoftrading.com. There's a link in the description. I have heaps of lessons over there, written lessons, and a whole library of free indicators, free scripts that I've created myself. I've created dozens and dozens and dozens of scripts. Some of them premium, you have to pay for them because they took me quite a long time to create, like my ultimate pullback indicator, for example. If I throw that on the chart, this will just give you an example of what you can achieve when you master this skill. So you can see here, this indicator is plotting signals to the chart, pullback signals. So if I turn off lesson 7, it's plotting my stop loss, 1 ATR above the swing high, and my target, 1 ATR below the entry point. And it's using the EMA, it's changing color based on price action. All of this stuff I'll teach you guys how to do yourself. But if you want to skip ahead, head over to my website and check out some of my free indicators. The source code for my free indicators is readily available, so you can go there and use them as reference material if you want to. That's it for today. See you next time, guys. Take it easy, trade green, and good luck with your coding.